only thing that the EFCC can find itself to do is to go after a, a cross-dresser, quite evidently, because some people don't like the idea of a man being a cross-dresser. They manufacture this idea of him abusing the naira in a country in which the vice president has recently um, been caught on camera uh, donating, amongst other things, some millions of naira to someone who claims to be his friend, as well as many other goodies. So the idea that you use public prosecutorial power in this manner is disgraceful. And the EFCC has to be ashamed of itself. It says that it's idle, it's got nothing to do, and it is involved and invested in abuse of power. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're proving me right.
Well, I mean, the person in question pleaded guilty. Are you saying that there are no facts or there are no basis to the EFCC charging BobRisky, the cross-dresser, to court over the abuse of the naira?
How many lawyers did he have?
You mean the EFCC?
BobRisky.
I saw a few lawyers behind him.
Yes, behind him. Of course, when a person is in a court of law, there's got to be lawyers behind the person. It doesn't mean that the lawyers behind them are representing the person, no?
So, no, the point I'm making, the question I'm asking is that you don't think that any Nigerian should be charged to court or to be prosecuted for abuse of the naira, because there are those who will say these are enshrined in our laws. The CBN Act is very clear about mutilating, selling, abusing the naira.
Did you notice that the two charges, the two counts in this what was originally supposed to be a 6-count charge, the two counts that were remotely connected with the mandate of the EFCC were withdrawn. The counts relating to money laundering, right? They were withdrawn. I don't know whether you noticed that.
Yeah.
And so what they then ended up with is effectively charging BobRisky for being a transvestite. Now, which part of the EFCC Act says that it's a crime, that it's the business of the EFCC to go after a person for being a transvestite?
I'm not sure he was charged for being a cross-dresser.
I'm saying that this is exactly what the EFCC has done. It's allowed itself to be weaponized against BobRisky, but because Nigeria being the kind of society we are, and don't forget, actually, this is also we just come out of Lent, and we are still in the season of Ramadan. Nigeria being the kind of society it is, we are not particularly tolerant of people who are different. BobRisky is obviously different, and that rubs a lot of people up the wrong way. And if I may go back, this was the week in which NERC, the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, or Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission to be very specific, increased electricity tariffs by 15%, by 300%, claiming that it did it for the 15% in Band A, but effectively achieving that by taking energy from the people who are in the lower bands, and so putting most Nigerians in energy hunger in order to service the needs of the rich people. And the day after they admitted that they had done this under secrecy, then EFCC picks up and charges BobRisky for these utterly laughable on these utterly laughable charges. And they don't think we are able to make the connection between the energy tax, which is exactly what it is, of about 300 and a bit percent, and the charges that have been levied against BobRisky. But it's a distraction.
It appears that to some people that you may be a BobRisky fan, and you were very angry that the EFCC was going after BobRisky. Are you a fan of BobRisky, or the lifestyle of BobRisky, or the concept and the life of the kind of person BobRisky stands for?
I'm a fan of a country in which the law applies to everyone equally. I'm picking on somebody because they are different from us. Is a very dangerous thing to do because every one of us is different. You see, you're Shehu, you're different. I'm Chidi, I'm different. Your producers are different. And it is easy to pick on people because we think them different. There is something about you that is unique to Shehu and which is not replicable or replicated in any other person in the world. If we started picking on people because they are different or because we don't like their difference from us or from the paradigm or from what we consider the normal, that is a very dangerous route to go down. And we have got to stand up against that.
Yeah, even when those kind of tendencies stands against the morality of our society.
What tendency are you talking about?
The cross-dressing concept and what it points at, because it looks like a popular moral decline, isn't it?
I don't know, I don't know when you grew into consciousness. In my part of Nigeria, in the early 70s, early to mid 70s, shortly after the Nigerian Civil War, there was a guy called Area Scatter. I don't quite remember what Area Scatter's name was. Area Scatter was making money from cross-dressing. This was in the 1970s. All right? This is not new. What BobRisky is doing is not new. That's the first thing. Across many parts of our country, by the way, you have the Dandaudus. And the Dandaudu actually in parts of northern Nigeria do have a role in protecting the sanctity of the domestic arrangements of royalty in northern Nigeria. So the idea that somehow the BobRiskys of this world are so utterly destitute of mission and morality that we've got to throw the kitchen sink of our laws at them in abuse of everything that prosecutorial prerogative stands for is beneath ridiculous.
So you think it's a witch hunt against BobRisky?
Totally. Unquestionably so.
You don't think that they should have...
Yeah. And it's also a distraction from the decision, which should concern all of us, of the NERC and the federal government to levy a very arbitrary and discriminatory energy tax on Nigeria this week.
You don't think the EFCC should have prosecuted BobRisky for those offenses at all?
One, it is not within the competence of the EFCC. Go and look at the law. Number two, even if now there is nothing in what they have charged that the police could not have done. There is nothing that they've taken to the federal high court that could not have been done by a local magistrate in Lagos. All right? This is absolute abuse of power. It is idle of the EFCC. It brings the EFCC into disrepute, and it is no wonder people don't take them seriously. And you know the interesting thing, the chairman of the EFCC is supposed to be a pastor.
Has it done anything to betray his faith?
I've just told you what I have done. I said the chairman of the EFCC is supposed to be a pastor. Have I said anything more than that?
No, if you look at what is happening in our society today, Professor, and you look at the morality and the fiber of our society that is by day being affected by some tendencies that are tilting towards unnatural offenses and all those kind of tendencies and same sexuality, are you worried about those kind of situation and what our society might be dragged into?
So let me I'm glad you're bringing this up. So let us discuss about the morality of our society. Where do you want me to begin? Election rigging. The fact that we have a person running the country who in 2019 kept a bullion van in his house and used the bullion van to corrupt the electoral process, and nothing happened to him. And people applied to this same EFCC and nobody bothered to bring him to account. The fact that we have a Chief Justice of Nigeria who has converted the office of the Chief Justice into a mechanism for edifying and profiting his private family interests and appointing and advancing the careers of members of his family. The fact that we have got the Chief Judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory who is intent on using his position to advance his daughter into the office of a judge of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory and advance members of the families of senior judicial figures into senior judicial office. The fact that we have got in this week a case corrupted by the EFCC, which fails to bring to account, including members of senior-most members of the legal profession, which as a result has effectively brought to an end the biggest corruption scandal in Nigeria's history since the death of Sani Abacha. The fact that in many courts in the country, ordinary litigants cannot get a day in court because the judicial system is corrupted. The fact that the minister for the FCT has decided to demolish buildings that are subject to court orders. Do you want me to continue with the state of morality in the country? So let me ask you, in the face of all of this, is BobRisky the most serious moral issue that you can find in Nigeria, sir?
Well, Professor, you don't worry about the issue of homosexuality and how those tendencies are growing.
You're not worried.
I'm the one who asked the question, sir. I'm the one who asked the question. So
no, we are both Nigerians, and both of us are going to suffer the consequences of a Nigeria that is morally degraded. And our children, you and I, are going to suffer it. So this is a mutual conversation. Let me ask you, in the midst of all of this, tell me that BobRisky is your most serious worry, or comes close to your most serious worry. I've not even talked about the politicians who are paying Boko Haram and ESN and IPOB and cultists in Ikorodu and people in the Niger Delta. And no, I'm not even talking about people who are killing tens and dozens and scores of people and hundreds in the Middle Belt or in the Northwest. I haven't even got into that theater.